All right, it's long overdue. Part 2 of the AI ChatGPT setup video, and this will be the final one of these videos. I'll explain why, plus a whole lot more to cover next. What's up, everybody? Thomas Brandon here. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And like I said, this video long overdue. Now, before we get into everything else, this AI ChatGPT stuff, I obviously intended to do a whole lot more of these. I intended for part 2 to be done months ago, and of course that did not happen. We had a couple deaths in the family. I had to roof my house. I hurt my back. So we've had a bunch of stuff happening. Plus, it's the holiday. Then I got behind, and it was the holidays. So I just really dropped the ball. And, for that, I apologize. But everything that we cover in this video, you'll be able to use on any other car. And I'll explain how you can do that to start building for a GT3 car, right? If you've never built for those, how you can do that, how you can build for dirt cars or whatever. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at the NASCAR trucks because iRacing just updated them at the time of this recording. Right now it's week 13 here, December 10th 2025, going into the season 1 of 2026. So they made some changes to the trucks, and it's a perfect opportunity to do this and show you how you can adapt to any future changes or different cars, etc. All right, so let's head over to the sim and get started. Okay, so we're here with the trucks. They're at Nashville for week 1, which is why I'm testing here, because we got a couple more weeks of the insider program before I bounce out of SSR and everything. But the reason why I wanted to kind of start off with this is that one of the main updates, and if we pull the update over here real quick, you'll see here on the notes. So NASCAR Truck Series body aerodynamic offsets have been dramatically updated, using the realistic skewed body shape to capture far more accurate forces acting on the trucks. This refinement has led to meaningful changes and significantly enhanced the handling fidelity of the trucks, especially in high yaw angle and side-by-side scenarios. This is really key, okay? So if you think about the NASCAR trucks and what they're talking about here, they're talking about the actual body offset of the truck, which is what these guys do in real life. Okay, so if I bring an image up over here of just the trucks, you see here how the body's skewed. See how this body is skewed? It kind of comes in and then comes out. If you're watching my cursor here, you can see how this is skewed, this is skewed, this is skewed. This is how they run these trucks. They build the yaw into the body, which helps with side force and all those types of things like this. We've seen this before on the Cup cars. Used to be like that. The Gen 6 car, the Gen 5 car, the Xfinity series. These cars, they want to skew that back in, that yaw angle, because it helps with the side force. All right, anybody can go fast in a straight line. Anybody can do that, right? They really can. I can go out and get into a NASCAR Craftsman truck, and eventually I can go just as fast in a straight line as any other person in the trucks, right? Realistic pro drivers, right? Anybody. But it's getting through the corner fast. That's what separates like the men from the boys, right? So when you can increase that side force, that downforce through the corner, that's what's so huge, and that's what all of them are trying to do. iRacing now is taking this much more into effect and improving the actual body aerodynamics. Now, how does this affect us? Well, here's the thing. So I went to ChatGPT, okay? And if you remember in video 1, I talked about how you have to train it and teach it and all that stuff like that. And once it learns this stuff, it learns this stuff. So if you look here, all I did was type in right here, iRacing just made some updates to the NASCAR trucks in the Sims. Here's the changes. And I just copy and pasted the changes. I didn't put all of them. I didn't put that iRacing setups have been updated because ChatGPT doesn't need to know that. but I just put the body aerodynamics aspect, the high yaw angle stuff. The drafting model has been updated, and the rear of the trucks have been updated to improve bump drafting. So ChatGPT laid it out. Here's what those NASCAR truck updates really mean for your setups and driving in iRacing, how they'll affect everything you've been doing. Because keep in mind, this knows what I do with the setups, right? Because I've been working with it for a very long time. So it knows if you've been working with it, it's going to know this stuff already now. Okay. So body aero effect or body aero offset update. This is the biggest change, right? So I basically rebuilt the aero map of the truck to finally reflect real life skewed body shape. This is going to affect side force stability, blah, blah, blah. We already know how this is going to affect it, right? How much the truck catches air on entry and mid corner, dirty air versus clean air. That's going to be the big one, I think. And then how rear toe and rear skew interact with the body. So here's the takeaways that we need to know. Max skew might not be optimal anymore, right? So if you remember before this update, we've always wanted to max out the rear skew of the truck, right? In just about every indication, especially on all the tracks that are 1.5 miles and smaller, right? When you get to the 2 mile or the restrictor plate tracks, you can make the argument that going the opposite direction is best. But every other track, we want to skew this thing out. Now it's saying excess mechanical skew might actually over-rotate the truck or destabilize it in certain yaw ranges. Really, to think about this is going to be dirty air, right? Like if you've got this thing max skewed, because I've tested it just by myself, works great in clean air. How's it going to do in dirty air, right? So that's something to think about. And then it gives me, here, test this out. Go to -3 and +3. Then sweep back to your previous baseline and check balance at entry yaw, your typical 6 to 12/6 angle. Watch in MoTeC. It gives me what to watch. Yaw Angle, Aero Sideforce, Aero Yaw Moment. Beautiful. That's what we need. Next, drafting model. What this means on track. Trucks will suck up, side drafting, disturbed air, right? Adjustments to consider. Front ride height sensitivity will increase. Right? These things are already pretty sensitive as it is. Now it's going to be even more. But more aero push in dirty air. Huge. Rear spring split may need revisiting. So too soft right rear, aero washout mid corner. Too stiff, truck won't turn in traffic. Very, very important things to consider. Are these going to be like the fixes? Like if what it's saying here, is that going to be like, oh, just make these changes and you're good? I don't know, but it's giving us a target to at least try and start with. And that's huge for any of you who've built setups or for any of you who have been building for a long time and you've gone through these updates before. It can be maddening when you finally think you've got stuff figured out and you're building stuff that feels good, and then iRacing does an update and now you're like, oh, what am I going to do? Because you go in and now all your stuff just fails tech, right? So you have to literally start over at square one and you have to retest everything you've been doing. Now you've got a way to put it in there and be like, hey, this is what it changed. Well, here, try these changes, right? So this is huge in terms of saving time. This is last one, rear end update for bump drafting. This is subtle but important. Strengthened rear bumper aero stability, adjusted how the wake forms off of the tailgate, improved coupling when being pushed. Trucks can now be pushed without insta spinning. You can run lower rear ride heights without the rear wake becoming unstable. That's huge when you think about drag. Rear damping settings now may affect the rear wake, stays attached more consistent, blah, blah, blah. We can't do anything with the springs, but the shocks might come into more of an effect when it comes to the drafting stuff. So right here, it gives us a nice little summary. Rear skew maxed out, may need less. Drafting handling, right? And it gives us all this stuff right here. We don't need to go over everything. And then it says, hey, you want me to build you updated, post update. So here's the thing. What do I need from this? Well, first of all, what I want is I want to look at the aero stuff, because that's what is the biggest change. And if you remember here, it says what to watch in MoTeC. Yaw Angle, Aero Sideforce, Aero Yaw Moment. So what I want is this. We're going to copy that, and you give me, and then we'll just paste. Boom. All right, so that's going to give us that now. Now we got to pull up old MoTeC here. And if you remember in MoTeC, because keep in mind, we did this with the next gen car before, right? We didn't do it with the trucks. But MoTeC, it gave us the same type of stuff, okay? And we've got aerodynamics, front applied downforce, truck downforce, rake angle, lateral grip analysis, all these different types of things that I've come up with over the years. And some of these have been done by ChatGPT. Now, we want to know how to calculate, what did it say? It was the Yaw Angle, Aero Sideforce, and Aero Yaw Moment. So it's going to give us these formulas. You can see here, it gives us the formulas. Okay, so I'm going to put these into MoTeC. I'll show you how to do one of them, but we're not going to do all of them while this is recording because that's going to take too long. But when you do these, understand that ChatGPT doesn't always know the names of the channels in MoTeC, right? And I think I talked about this before. But if you look at this, you can see right here, it says, assuming you have longitudinal, latitudinal velocity channels, they're often called, and this is really important, long velocity, lat velocity, or velocity X, velocity Y. We do have those, the X and Y, okay? So that's what these would be right here. So we need yaw arrow degrees equals radians to degrees. So we need the velocity X, the velocity Y, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this and then paste it. And this is Aero side slip. We're going to just paste this. Now this is yaw arrow degrees equals, we don't need that. So we're going to have to like delete some of this stuff, but that's okay because what we do, I leave it up to as kind of a guideline so I can see what I'm doing, so I'm not having to go back and forth. So we need a tan 2. And then if you remember what it said, velocity X, velocity Y. Okay, so that's what we need. We need velocity X, insert channel, and it doesn't give us a speed, right? It doesn't say like, hey, use it feet per second or anything like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to use miles per hour, just because that's a very easy number to convert for us. All right, and then we need velocity Y, which is also going to be miles per hour. Okay, I have to delete that. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our arrow side slip. Boom. Okay, and what we're going to do is if I pull this up, we're going to go here to aerodynamics. We'll go to properties, add group, add new channel, arrow side slip. Boom, boom. Pull this in. And there we go. We now have our arrow side slip numbers. Okay. Now, we don't really know what that means yet, but we have it. Okay. So now I'm going to pause this. I'm going to put the other formulas in, and then we'll be right back in just a sec. Okay. So I got these in, the arrow side slip and the Aero Sideforce. The yaw index I didn't do. Looking at it, I don't really think I need it. We've got different yaw rates and stuff like that in here. So we're good now. Okay. Now, the next thing that we want to do here is we want to actually ask ChatGPT, hey, well, how do we want to go about testing this? Okay. So do we want to do, clean air runs versus dirty air? Do we want to just run in a pack? Like, how do we want to go about doing this? Okay. So let's ask it. Make sure you tell it what you're doing. So I am building a race setup for, all right. So we ask it and we wait. And you can see right here, it's just laying it out for us. Obviously, it's going to give us like the 30,000 foot view and then break it down, which is fine, right? You have to do all this step by step? No, but like I said, it gives you a target, and that's the biggest thing when it comes to saving time. All right, just going out and doing stuff. Dude, you can lose so much time doing that, right? So don't try to tune everything at once. That's obviously huge. Nashville, concrete, high tire wear, progressive banking, car change driving, blah, blah, blah. You must build the setup around, and then it'll give you entry security, long run, maintaining platform, blah, blah, blah. Establish the aero platform before touching mechanical grip. Now, one of the good things is I already have a setup, right? I already have setups. So we want to make sure that we get everything into the right ranges. Now you can see here, NASCAR Trucks rear ride height. This needs to be updated, okay? The optimal range for this is 3.9 to 4.5. Okay, this was kind of the older one, so you want to make sure that you update stuff when it happens. Okay, so you can do that now, or you can do that when you upload the data. It doesn't matter. Okay, run 10 laps in clean air with aero balance chart. All right, and nail stable balance. Okay, if aero platform is unstable, fix that before touching anything else. Okay, so it tells us we want to go out, do a 10 lap run, okay, with our aero balance. Okay, then we want to set mid-quarter balance, all this stuff like this. So it gives us the way to do this, and then we'll test, traffic and all this stuff like this. Okay, but it gives us how to do it right there, boom, right in front of us. Very, very simple, and this works for every car, you guys. So if this was a the 911 GT3 or whatever it is at Monza, right? It'll tell you the exact same thing. It'll give you the breakdown. Hey, this is what you want to do. This is how you do it. Now, if you are completely new to GT3, right? Like you haven't done any testing, any setup building, you got to start from scratch like we talked about in part 1, where you go in, you establish your baselines, you got to feed it the data, you got to say, hey, this is what we're working with, here's our zones, right? If you remember the piece of paper or the sheet that I had where you put in all the mins and maxes and all that stuff like that, you've got to put in some time. But once you get it, you can see here with the truck, I've put in a lot of time with it, and now this is, boom, we're ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to do is, because I've already got a setup, all right, from a couple seasons ago, and the setup's still past tech, everything is still good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to do a 10 lap run like it states. Okay, so we just wrapped up our little test here, which was 8 or 9 laps. I thought I did 10, but it's 8 or 9. Now we're going to remember, we have to export the setup. Before I do that though, I'm going to save this. We want to export this setup. Okay, and we're going to export it just like it is. Once we have that exported, then we go to MoTeC. We have our data here, and we need to get this exported. So we're going to right click, and we're going to go to export data. Now, if you remember last time in video 1, and if you haven't seen part 1, I really recommend you watch that. But part 1, remember, we have to change a few things here. So we want this right here. We want visible channels, visible data. The output file format, we're going to put this on CSV file. The output sample rate, you want to put that to 50 Hertz, okay, and then hit export. Now, where you save this or anything like that, that's completely up to you, but for me, I've got an area that I do this, and so I'm going to do a new folder here, and we're going to have Truck Nashville SS, so that way I know what's here. Now, this first one, the way that I label these is I just leave all of this, and then I just add a small thing to the back here, and then whatever this tab is how I label it on here, so I know. Okay, so this is ride heights. Boom, done. Next, we're going to go to our aerodynamics. Same thing. Right click, export data. This should all be the same. Hit export. It's going to come to the same spot here, and we're just going to go this, and then Aero. Boom. Now, for things like, when we have, like this other stuff, nosedive, you can do all this, right? If you want to, you can export as much data as you want. Dynamic loads, dynamic spring loads, right? Suspension histogram. So like this type of stuff, for me, like the histograms, I'll just post a snippet, like just a screenshot of it like this. I'll just copy and then paste that. So it's really up to you, but I find that when it's the channels that look like this, you want to export the data, and then when it's, something like this, you want to just, or like a plot, if you have a plot type thing, and I don't even know where I have one, I've got one somewhere, but then you would want to do, you would want to take a picture of it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to say, hey, We did our first 10 lap run. Here's the data. The truck actually felt good. It felt pretty good. And we're going to say, you know, what are your thoughts? Okay. Now, remember, let them know. We talked about before, the optimal ride height. Remember what it said? It said like 4.6 to 4.8 or something. That's not exactly right. For the trucks, it's 3.9 to 4.5. Okay. So here's our first 10 lap run. Truck feels. First 10 lap run in clean air. That's important to note. The truck feels good and balanced so far. So we're gonna do this. Optimize this setup for the long run and dirty air. Help me optimize the setup for the long run and dirty air. So and then we need to add all of our data exports, which I've got in that special little folder thing. Hit that, and let's see what it has to say. Okay, now really quick, I forgot to say this just a second ago, but I added this. Please note that the optimal rear ride heights for the trucks in MoTeC is 3.9 to 4.5. This is a good example of sometimes ChatGPT not understanding and then understanding, right? So if you look at this right here, it says, all right, long run, dirty air, ride height, concrete bump, maintaining, blah, 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 blah. It gives us all what we need to know. Here's what the histograms are telling us. It gives us all this information here. Left front, stable. Right front, working hard on bumps. Left rear, way too active. Right rear, second most active. Okay. Rear ride height goal. Optimal is this. Dynamic, it says your current. Static ride height is this. With Nashville's long compression zones, braking, you will see around 0.9 to 1.4 in terms of dynamic compression is what it's saying. That puts you roughly 4.2 to 4.6 and 4.3 to 4.7. This is really interesting to note because if you actually look at our active, like our averages for the left rear, it's 4.0, and then the right rear is 4.4. That's average all the way around the track. When you start breaking it down by corner and stuff like that, it's obviously different, but that's fairly close to what they said here. They had 4.0 to 4.3. We're at 4.0. And then on the right rear, it had 4.1 to 4.4. We're at 4.48, almost 4.5. So pretty close. So it is pretty close. So that's a good thing. It says this, so we want to bring the left rear or the rear down 0.15 because that'll lower the dynamics. Okay. Exact adjustments for long run balance, and it's going to give us all the adjustments. Okay. Left rear is overworking. Fix this or right rear will die at lap 15. Very important, right? Right rear rebound is too high. Okay. Toe and skew optimization. Okay. So you're running your signature. I've got it maxed out with the new Aero model. Side forces more, trucks generate more rotation per degree of yaw. Dirty air push is stronger. Max skew amplifies exit looseness. For race trim, it recommends coming down. So we want to try that. It says if you want to keep max skew, then you must stiffen left rear rebound even more. Important notes, right? Is this correct? We don't know. But like I said, once again, having that target is so important because we have a path to go down now. Dirty air optimization. When you follow another truck at Nashville, aero balance shifts rearward, front loses grip, rear rotates unpredictably. To counter that, add a touch more crossweight, raise track bar left side, lower brake bias. We don't really need to do that. And now it gives us all of the setup adjustments to do. Next, do a 25 to 30 lap run with all of this stuff. If temps look directionally correct, we'll finalize this. Boom, there we go. So I am going to make these changes. Okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to actually do I'm going to bypass this. I'm going to do a dirty run test so you guys could see how the truck acts in dirty air and the changes, because like I said before, I don't want this to be 4 hours long because it'll take forever if I just go do another 25 lap run by myself, then come back in, look at the data, blah, 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 blah. So let's get into the dirty air stuff. All right. So I'm going to bounce out of this session. I'll load up an AI session. I'll do some laps, and then we'll take a look at the dirty air testing next. Okay. So I just finished up the 35 lap run. AI race, dirty air, all that stuff like that. I basically just started at the back of the pack, 30 trucks on track and just drove in dirty air, ran all the way up to second or third. Actually got spun out on lap 17 by the AI car, which is right there. But overall, we did fine. Now, one thing that I've noticed recently doing AI races is the telemetry data comes back and it's missing information. So you can see here, it doesn't have the turns in, it doesn't have the track name in. When I go to pull the data, it's blank. You see, they don't have the information. Why it's doing that, I don't know. I don't know why it's doing that with AI races, but it is. Okay, so just something to keep a note on. All right, something to remember. So overall, the truck felt really good and handled really well, okay? Which is all information that we're going to give to ChatGPT. So we're going to export this data. Okay, we get the arrow here, suspension histogram, data. Overall, the truck did feel pretty good. And Nashville is a fairly bumpy track. So let's get all this stuff loaded up here. Okay. Truck felt good over the 35 lap race test. This data was all in dirty air except for the last 3 to 4 laps. So the truck felt good even in traffic with trucks in front of me. When I had somebody on my rear in the right rear quarter panel, that is something you definitely got to pay attention to, because it starts getting loose. Perfect. This thing feels really good. It's almost there. So we just need to get a little bit of fine tuning, and I think we're going to be good. Okay, so after 2 minutes of thinking, it has got our answers here. So yeah, dude, you're really close. The histogram, tire sheet screams 90% there. Just tame the getting shoved moments, which there were some times going into the corner where the front end was pushing a little bit, which is mostly due to dirty air. So we've got some small tweaks here that it is, suggesting on the shocks. Shock adjustments are really huge. I know everybody still thinks just, max them out or whatever. They don't do nothing. They do make a difference, especially when you talk about these little tweaks. It does matter. So it gives us all the data here that we need. It gives us some adjustments to make, little cross weight increase, very small, but definitely will help. Make a couple of changes to the shock, right? Left rear and right rear, we're just going to increase the left rear rebound, and then we will increase the right rear compression and then decrease the rebound. So a couple small little adjustments there. And then, like I said, the cross weight, and then it's just kind of going over everything else. We could also make an adjustment to the bump here. Ride heights, it's going to give us all that data. You're not dipping below, which is good. Mid corner, both rears live mostly between 4 and 4.3. That's where we want it to be. So right here, it gives us our final changes, and then it tells us what to do. Running with dirty air, running dirty air, see how it does. Boom, 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 boom. Give us the next data, right? Straightforward, simple, right there, ready to go. And it doesn't take that long. Now, this was me doing it with the setup that I've already built and tested and stuff like that. But here's the thing. You can do this with anything, right? You can use, the iRacing setup. You can just say, hey, build me a setup, right? Here's the parameters. Here's the margins that I need it to be in. Build me a setup, right? So once you have a little bit of data, it can go a very, very long way. And when you can do things like ask it to, hey, give me the telemetry math formulas to calculate this stuff, it makes it so much easier. And as you can see here, even after an update, we were able to make some changes, improve the setup, get it right back to where we need it, and now we're ready to go. All right, you guys, so that's gonna do it. I actually need to get to work. Right now I've had shops blowing me up and needing glass work, so I got to get to work. But you guys, that's going to do it all for this video and the setup building with ChatGPT, or AI. I hope this stuff helped you. I really do. I hope I was able to give you guys enough information to where you've got something to use moving forward to help you build or adjust setups. I've talked about it before. I've always loved building setups. Even in real life when I was setting up race cars, I loved it. Now, I'm racing motocross, and I love tuning on my bike, and I'm rebuilding my bike right now, and I'm going to be revalving my suspension, right? Using, even though it's motocross suspension, shocks are shocks, right? Valving is valving. Things, the vehicle dynamics are the same, right? Whether it's a car, a dirt bike, or a go-kart, it doesn't matter, right? Racing is racing, and when you can kind of figure stuff out and get it dialed in, right, and you have the ability to come and make these changes on the sim, it makes it just that much more fun, right? It's awesome to go out and do good or win a race on a in an open setup scenario, and you're using a setup that you got from somebody else, or maybe you bought it, or a friend gave it to you, or maybe it's the iRacing setup, right? Who knows? But when you're the one that puts in the work and builds it, and then you go out there and it does well, that's really rewarding. And that's one of the things that I enjoyed the most about sim racing, was doing that. At the end of the day, that's always been probably one of my favorite things, other than the people, the community itself, right? Especially the SSR community. So, been a lot of fun. I hope this helps you, and hopefully there's enough in here to guide you going forward when it comes to building setups and whatnot here on the sim. So you guys, yeah, thank you very much. That's gonna do it. I am gonna be putting up one more video on the channel before the end of this year, kind of wrapping up the sim racing stuff. This channel is going to be staying up. I'm not going to be taking it down or anything. It's going to be staying up. I'm not going to be adding more to it. I'm not planning on sim race or anything like that. I have another YouTube channel I'm doing with my son now, which, we don't have very many subscribers or anything, but it's mostly just for fun with the dirt bikes. And so any bit of time that I have going forward, I'll be focusing on that as opposed to this one. This one largely is, it's just basically for iRacing, and it's been awesome, and hopefully it'll still remain a good tool moving forward for people. All right, so thank you guys very, very much. I hope this helps you. I appreciate you watching and being a part of this. It's been an awesome run, and yeah, I hope this can guide you out there on the track and get you some wins. So that's gonna do it. Thank you very much as always, and until next time, good luck, good racing, take care.